episode of the African Echo podcast. How are you doing? Well, I am a bit excited, just a bit excited, because today I'm having a conversation that I've been putting off for quite some time. And I said, no, it's finally, let me pull this man of God in so that he can come and give us some word of God. But nevertheless, it's not really the word of God. I am joined today by independent political analyst Thobani Zikalala. I mean, you know him. He's all over on your TV, radio, wherever you tune in, especially when it comes to political intuition and news. He's your guy. So I am with him today in the studio, and we're looking into the Madlanga Commission. 1,300 political killings, with high stats of surveys where it shows that people have lost faith in the governments and the running of the governments as well. So I'm chilled with him today. We're just looking to stuff that are happening around. But let me just greet him. Mr. Zikalala.
Makes asibingelele sanibona.
Today.
I'm happy to be here, man. We've come a long time, so I'm happy to be finally invited in your new platform.
When I thought of you, I was reflecting. That guy, I said to him, hey, politics, when you are analyst, go to your career, get your career back, and here you are.
Yeah, man, it's been a long journey. I mean, it is something that I've been told a lot that I need to do something different, but remember me, my interaction with politics is not as a matter of just profession. It's a matter of a bigger cause of wanting to contribute in the liberation and the transformation of this country. So yes, I'm an independent political analyst, but in terms of my interest, in terms of my ideological beliefs, I'm not independent. I'm with the downtrodden, I'm with the forgotten voices, I'm with the oppressed. And for me, it is something I'm unapologetic about. Of course, some people will accuse us of this and that, but I think for me, it is important to articulate it in that way. Because if I don't articulate it in that way, then I'm almost a vacillating political analyst whose views can be used to either harm the people that I come from. Because fortunately for me, I don't speak about people I don't come from. I'm from KwaDukuza, a place where there's no running water. So if I speak anything that goes against those people's interest of one day getting running water, getting economic production and participation in the area, if I speak anything that goes against the interest of those people, and then that means I can't go home and get it's my favorite thing. It's one of the best things she does.
Let's get to the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. In South Africa, surveys. Surveys are corner. We have question mark where exactly are they taken? But nevertheless, we are here, and it's said with the public interest, running of the governance of the day. It's declined. But ukufika kwi-GNU, everyone was hopeful that it's going to see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. But is there really a light at the end of the tunnel?
I mean, if you look at the levels of poverty in that country, the levels of economic disallocation, or the levels of which the poor in this country participate in the economy, it should follow that those people will lose hope in the governing structures of this country. The GNU, for some people, of course, was going to bring about the idea of accountability, transparency, and the cross-checking. But coalitions in the main are chaos. And coalitions in the face of the current status quo in this country, it's the best thing that could have happened for the status quo. Because there is chaos, everyone is contesting, the status quo continues to prevail. So I think anyone who had hope of a coalition, because Government of National Unity is a nice name for the coalition we have in this country. Anyone who had hope in this coalition, it's someone maybe who has not studied politics in the main. Yes, coalitions have worked in particular areas, and that argument is being used a lot. But the question is who it has worked to whose interest. We live in a capitalist neoliberal political society. This is what we live in, where the majority is excluded from economic production, economic benefits and the like, and the minority is the one benefiting. If you introduce capitalism, it works best for the status quo because you don't have a coordinated work of government. Everyone pulls from one side, they're all trying to outshine each other and the like. So yes, the Madlanga Commission then comes. And of course comes when, South Africans, because of their loss of hope in the current government, and of course with our political history again, Africa, and South Africa in particular, is a space where messianic politics, the politics of the hero, the politics of personalities, the big man politics are big in Africa. Okay. You go to any country, any locality in Africa, you'll find a hero, a person who is viewed as the solution of all problems of everyone. Because of the despondency we have on the current political situation, which, by the way, is as a product of our long history of colonialism, imperialism, and apartheid, which has brought about this idea of the society we live in. We are looking for a hero.
Okay.
We are looking for someone from this space who's going to come and offer us something new. And you've seen how many movements have emerged and people have followed because they're just looking for a way out. We're looking for a hero, for someone who's going to lead us out of this thing. Of course,
we need a messiah.
We need a messiah of some sort. Messianic politics in the main are problematic. Bego says this idea of waiting for someone to come from the sky to come and solve our problem is problematic because it disempowers us disempowers us of our participation in our own liberation and our own transformation. But then the 6th of July happens. The Lieutenant General or the General Mkhwanazi comes in with big allegations. The country is in a frenzy. The president says a few days later, after being shocked and everything and being amazed and all those things, the Madlanga Commission must happen. The Madlanga Commission is in the main there to investigate the allegations made in particular by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi and anything related to it. It is shocking revelations, but some of us are interested in it because it finally lays bare, at least at a smaller scale, because we believe there's much bigger things happening in this country. We hope there is much more that's going to be uncovered, is that it shows the nexus between cartels, criminal syndicate, government, and business.
Right.
In particular.
So there's three links.
This nexus, it's there everywhere in the world. In capitalist societies, criminal syndicates, cartels thrive because they operate on the same logic, by the way. The logic is very simple: to make as much money as possible. One uses legitimate ways to exploit, oppress, which is business. Big business comes in, invests, employs people, extract as much labor power from them in return of very little wages, keeps the rest unemployed and not participating in the economy. The same logic happens in the criminal underworld. When people come in to commit crimes or to do criminal activities, they want to be the biggest man in the game. They want to have the biggest control. They want to regulate the market in their own terms. So how do you do it in a polity like South Africa or the world? You do it by connecting yourself to the politicians who run the state and connecting yourself. You look at the best cartels in the world and the best their best documentaries you'll find on cartels. You'll always find the linkages between the judiciary, the police, and What we need to investigate in South Africa is how far and how true the allegations made by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. And of course, we must do this as the terms of reference of the Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc committee say, by listening to everyone. We can't go into the allegations already believing that one is correct, one is lying. We must go there with an open mind of wanting to listen to everyone. But everyone who's going to speak must speak the truth and must speak in a way that we are able to understand. Because some people, the way they've been speaking, they themselves are almost incriminating themselves because of their inability to explain their own decisions. which is why then it seems as if there is a sentiment in this country, which we must warn the people of South Africa about, is that they are moving towards believing one side of the story. And it's problematic. Forget the outcomes of the Madlanga Commission.
Okay.
We need to listen to what is being said there. And as a country, take actions upon what is being said and our deduction of what is being said. Commissions in the country have yielded very little result. Yes, some of them have worked, but they have not worked to the expectations that we had. So we need, as the people of South Africa, to do our own deduction and say, we believe so-and-so is lying because what he has said has not been corroborated by anyone who came here claiming that they support or they're on his side. Therefore, what he's saying is lies. What do we say about it? But we must do that with an open mind of saying, let us first listen to everyone. Yeah.
My point is on detecting the lies and the truth, because there's no correlation there. And how do you prove that one is lying or not?
I mean,
especially when you're talking to people of power.
I mean, of course, another thing which is, I mean, for me is a danger about things like the Madlanga Commission and some of the things that are being spoken, is that we will end up having to speak about things that are never spoken about in public.
Okay.
When we start speaking about state security agencies, criminal intelligence, and there are state security secrets that must never be said in public. We must never state our capabilities unless we want to make a particular point in the global political landscape. But we must never state our capabilities of saying, no, this is what we have, this is what we don't have. We have so many planes, we don't have this. Because then we lay ourselves bare. But I understand also that some of the people who are in the Madlanga Commission are, I mean, some of them are just, and I'm going to use the word, but I mean it with the greatest of respect, are just mere policemen.
Right.
They have no appreciation of the global political landscape.
Okay.
None whatsoever. And because of that, sometimes they will lay bare things in public that have a greater impact on our status on the global political landscape. For example, when we say you don't have intelligence, when we say we don't have, our soldiers don't have petrol, they can't go to war. They will end up saying we don't have guns, we don't have drones, we can't fly in the sky.
Yeah.
And remember, South Africa is a very interesting political territory in the global political landscape.
Especially
this is why, for example, South Africa takes so long to be independent. Imperialism and colonialism is very interested in this country. It is the gateway to Africa. It is how you maintain the control of Africa. Many big businesses in the world come through Africa to come to South Africa through Africa. You can't then have South Africa, which is weak in terms of control of its own territory, like, for example, how we can't control our own borders, we can't control what happens in the country, we can't control what comes through our waters, we can't control what comes in through our skies, and then we've got the people who are entrusted with making sure that this happens, coming in public and saying, no, by the way, we don't have the capacity to do those things. You see how dangerous it is. So, yes, the Madlanga Commission must happen maybe because things have been laid into public, but we need to be very careful. We need to be careful about our own security as a state. And when our politicians are now implicated, those who are entrusted with making laws and running this country are now implicated in things that threaten our security, we must also be worried. Those people must be held accountable. How does it happen that you become a friend or associated with this person? That's what some of us are interested in reading in the Madlanga Commission or listening to. Madlanga Commission, people must say, no, me, I don't know that one. I don't know that one. I'm not associated. And this is the proof. It's this person. Now, the problem is now is that in this country, we're going to end up engaging in umgos. Because if you look at some of the things that are coming out, it's just umgos. See, now we are interested in real, meaty criminal issues. Why is this one, what is this one doing, and what is their connection to that one? But there are some things that you can see that in this country, if again you listen to social media, we end up focusing on the small things, the ability of someone to articulate English, or articulate English or not, and all those things. For me, those are side issues. We have a history in this country. Even myself, I'm not the best speaker of English. We have a history in this country that made it sure that some people can't access school, some people can't access school in the way they can, and the languages that we speak about are imposed of us and all those. So all of these things must tell us a thing about what should we expect from the people of South Africa, especially if you look at particular ages. Of course, for me, as a 34, 35-year-old, you can't say hey, Thobani is struggling with this because in 1970 I was not there. But I am a product of that history. The reality I live through today is because of that history. The fact that I grew up in the township and I was born in a rural area is not of my own making. It is of the making of the structural design of this country, which said particular people grow up in these particular areas, they access this type and level of education. We grow up in homes, some of us where there's no one who has ever went to university, for example. We become the first generations who go there. This is the history of this country. And if we are going to approach anything that happens in this country, whether it's a criminal syndicates, corruption, political interference, and all those things, without the appreciation of our history, is going to be a problem. Because we're going to end up blaming people who come to situations which are already predetermined.
Okay.
The interactions between the police and the politicians and criminals and what is very old in this country. Yes, it must end, but it did not start yesterday, unfortunately. I do not think it did.
Khosini, now here is the main question that many people have been asking me: the distinguishing between the ad hoc and the Madlanga Commission itself. How do you distinguish those two? What exactly benzani?
Okay. The way I understand it, and I'm going to say it in the best possible ways.
Okay.
I'm not a law expert myself because some of these things are legal. But in my understanding of politics is this. The Madlanga Commission comes through because of, it's governed by the Commissions Act of South Africa.
Okay.
It is a proclamation of the president. It has got judicial power. It is run by the judiciary to the possibilities of prosecution there, that what comes out could be prosecuted. That if you don't go, if you are called to go and you don't go, and you refuse to go, you could be prosecuted in court. All those things. That's the difference. For me, it's run by the judicial branch. Yes, it is brought forward by the executive branch of the state, right? Because it's a proclamation of the president. The head of state brings it forward. But how it is run by the judiciary. That's why an ex-judge is appointed. And you can see how the proceedings are run. They are run in a quasi-judiciary way. While on the other hand, the ad hoc committee is an accountability measure of parliament, who, by the way, have got the duty to make the executive in particular to account and perform oversight over it. So because the executive was implicated in the 6th July accusations, Parliament has got its own fiduciary duty to make sure that they make the executive account. The executive, by this place, we mean the minister, maybe the president, and those who run the SAPS, because they form part of the executive branch of the state. What is the executive branch of the state? Is those who make sure that the laws and policies of this country are implemented. They are part of the 3 branches of the state. It's the executive, the parliament, and the judiciary. So the parliament, their role is to make law and perform oversight and hold accountable the executive. Now they have the fiduciary duty to then. That's why then they establish an ad hoc committee. Why is it an ad hoc committee? Because it is a temporary committee. It is not a permanent committee of parliament like a portfolio committee of police and what. This is established in particular to investigate 6th July 2025 allegations by General Mkhwanazi. I hope I make sense, but that's the long short of it.
I believe that it makes sense. Now, the announcement by Commissioner Mkhwanazi is the buzz that the entire country is focusing on. But are we really focusing on what we should be focusing on as Abantu baseNingizimu Afrika? We're heading towards local government elections. There's so much impact that could come out of that.
A young Amin will have said, no, we shouldn't be focusing on this. It's just another distraction. But having grown a bit, I believe there is no sentiment of the people of South Africa that must be ignored.
Okay.
No matter how backward we think it is, but it must never be ignored. The role of those who know better. And I've been making a call in this country for some time now, and I've seen some other seniors are starting to make the same call. of the what I call the intellectual vanguard of this country, what other people would call an intelligentsia, is to say there's a time for the intellectual vanguard of this country to rise. Why do I say so? It is because we are embroiled in a space where there's a lot of doing, there's a lot of action that's happening, and there's less thinking. There's less analysis, there's less thinking, there's less prediction. Let me make an example. Apartheid was not brought about just by doers.
Okay.
The same as colonialism, imperialism, and not called. It was not brought about just by doers, people who want to do things. Thinkers were at the center of it. If you think about how sophisticated, even though brutal, the apartheid system was, but you look at how much it was thought about, what law to make, what business to come into, what regulations to, that all required an intelligentsia. That's why Verwoerd, a PhD sociologist, was brought about. That's another mistake we make in this country. I think as a social sciences person, I must say this. In this country, we don't want social sciences. We think they are not important. Yeah. But we think we are going to socially engineer society, we are going to change society without engaging the very people who study how societies work. Because no matter how much you like what we studied, political sciences, sociology, anthropology, and all these things, no matter how much you dislike it, but it is it that makes the world. The preoccupation of human social sciences is human existence and how it happens and how it develops. You can go to your engineers to build the best structures, but if you have in socially engineered society in a particular way, you will find a situation where your engineers build, they say they are designing, for example, new settlements. They build the very same settlements built by apartheid townships. This is why we see them all over the country. Because no one is engaging the very people who were at the center of the making of the system we want to dislodge. Where is our best social scientist? Where is our best political scientist to think about what political system do we build that will be able to dislodge that which was brought about by the apartheid political system? We don't do that. We just want social science, we just want engineers, scientists, and we say it's not important. I mean, I've seen people in this country who are very respected who are saying, no, but why would you study anthropology? And some of these people have led this country. Why would you study sociology? The best countries in the world, by the way, they are putting their money
into that
because they are lacking it. They built an industrial world, but without making society. You have people who are unable to relate to each other because you haven't really invested as a country on how to make a new society. We inherited, as is, the apartheid colonial imperial society in this country. We are perpetuating it, but all we have done is we've given it a democratic makeup. So every 5 years, there's a cycle of a series, we go and vote and all those things. Sometimes we get asked, what do we think? But at the core of it, apartheid still continues to thrive. Who is rich in this country, who is poor, is determined by the very same determinants. The idea that we have now democratic South Africa where we can go to Umhlanga, for example, which we couldn't go, where we can go to a South Beach or a North Beach, which we couldn't go before, does not mean that things have changed in this country. Because even though there is no law prohibiting me from living in Umhlanga, but the economic conditions built about by the laws of apartheid that made it impossible for me to access particular things, the economic conditions I live in now make it difficult for me to be able to go there. So apartheid, yes, in the political framework, in terms of the prescripts of the politics may have been gone because the descriptors are no longer there. The non-Europeans, the natives, the blacks, and what call are no longer there. But apartheid as its system and its effects, which determines where white people are able to go, where black people are able to go, what type of food are you able to eat, and all those things are still there. And that needs for us to do a much more than thinking. I'm sorry, I digress and speak about other things.
I know, you'll go on and on and on. It's like that. But let's get back to it. The question remains. It says, can the state still police itself? Can it protect its justice? Can it also defend the sort of sovereignty of the country?
I don't know about sovereignty. I don't know about national security. In this country, there is let's say plus minus 3 million people that we don't know where they come from and how they came to this country. They are everywhere. They are either garden boys or drug dealers or property owners. Some of them are in Constantia, some of them are in Alexandra. They are everywhere. We don't know how they came here. The activities that they are able to do in this country, we can't govern them because we don't know where they are. We have people who are in this country who don't have the correct identification. Some of them have got stolen IDs. At the level of the state, we've got people who, and in terms of economic participation, I mean, if you look at, for example, some private security companies, you find that people who are former rebels, former mercenaries are working there. You don't know how they got there, how they got the competences to be able to work there. At the state itself, we have many people who are not from this country, we don't know where they come from, who are working in this country. And then you've got the multiple criminal syndicates. I mean, how many times have we heard of large amounts of drugs coming into our borders, things that are being found? I don't think really we can say safely that this country can safeguard its national security. Its political independence as a country, I think, we have never really been politically independent as a country. We've always been politically independent in relation to what our former oppressors and the rulers of the world want our independence to be. Which is why when we make particular pronouncement in the world, we'll be reprimanded. When we make political decisions in this country, there are people in other countries who are unhappy, who are coming to say, no, there's bad things happening in South Africa.
So the system continues.
Yeah, so the idea of imperialism has not, the idea that there is an empire in the world, which are currently, of course, is the Anglo-Saxon Empire led by the US, but the imperial world is still run by USA, which runs most of the countries of the world, runs the political interests and economic interests of the countries of the world. We make decisions in relation to whether America would be happy or not. But unfortunately, because of our relations, that what we've tried to do, we've made relations with China, with relations, former relations with relations with Russia and what you call, we also now have to juggle. Sifana nenkomo encelisa amankonyana amabili. Inkinga ke yabona nobisi lunenkinga kwesikhathi ungaphumi ngokulingana. Nenye inkonyana izogcina isikhala ibhonga ngoba yona ayithoni ngokwanele. And kunenye othola ukuthi izalwe eqala kunenye. Ngakho yazi ukuthi ubisi libhilo ngakuyona kubela. Uma usuqala uncelisa lengathi sencane unenkinga. So inkinga sinayo ileyo. So I don't think our political independence has really been achieved. We have achieved what your Fanons and Kwame Nkrumah have called flag independence. We got the new flag. We didn't get the new capital. It's capital cities. We got the new presidents. We got the new faces in parliament. A few new laws here and there, but we never got our political independence. So I don't think this country can really guarantee that we are politically independent. We are secure as a state. There is also some discontent happening in our security cluster. The defense force, there are rumblings happening. We've seen now things happening in the police force. We are not going to see other things maybe in the Navy and the like. But there seems to be a discontent with those who we have discharged with the responsibility of protecting us. Leave the politicians. But the politicians are doing so much wrong that the people who are the operatives, it seems they are unhappy. And we've seen things happening. We've seen people flying over the country. We've seen, for the first time, generals coming out to speak about the political makeup of this country, which is something we've never seen in the past 30 years.
So that is something.
That is something. It says something about our ability to protect ourselves and
some sort of accountability, if you could call it that.
I mean, accountability, yes, but we need to really think about what accountability means. Is it a matter of someone saying, sorry, so did this, or is someone acknowledging that I did this and it was wrong and this is what I'm going to do to fix it? I don't think this country has ever gotten there. It is always this one did that, this one did that, this one did that, but never in accountability of saying, yes, I did something like this, I was wrong and I'm going to fix it.
All right. Mr. Zikalala, I have this one. I think I'm going to like the response from here. To talk to a South African who could be watching right now, to say to them, what can they realistically do to hold power to account and to support the institutional integrity in our country?
We really need to rethink what is citizenship. what it means to be South African to us.
Yeah.
Not as a determination of other people, but to us as South African, what it means to be South African. We need to rethink organization. We need to rethink our own position in society and what that means. Because the problem is that for the past 30 years, we have let the state to be the one determining what it means to be South African organization, our political participation and the like. It seems because of that, we've been taken for granted. I think it's a high time the people of this country take back their power and being able also to be a thinking people. Maybe that's what my last point. We need to be a thinking people. We are too much of a doing people. We are too much of a mobilized people. We are not a thinking people. It seems we are trying to solve problems that we understand very little about. We are not very interested in understanding intrinsically the problems that we are facing, their sources, their history, and where they come from, their effects on us. This is why even when we act, we don't act in a fundamental way. Our solutions are always temporary because we haven't invested the time into understanding our problems. And I think for me, that would be the biggest thing. It is what, I don't claim to know everything and to be the best, but it's what at least in my very miniature way have tried to dedicate myself to try a little bit, to understand a little bit the things that we face. I may be incorrect because what I know is that I know nothing. That's what Socrates taught us. And we follow that principle that what I know is that I know nothing. That's why I live a life of questioning. And I don't think in this country we do a lot of questioning, a lot of problematizing. We do a lot of doing. This is why we always say, but the problem is that when you and you'll find that we've been speaking about in a wrong direction because really we don't think, we just are speaking, hey, ubanibani corrupt, because we don't do, and also we don't read. We don't read, we don't think, we don't listen. We are always busy doing something.
Yep, on TikTok, bro.
Yeah. TikTok itself can be informative. It chooses which one you go to. Facebook itself, there are people who bring information. It chooses where you go to. Exactly. But we are so much interested in the vibes and the trends, the things that make us happy, the things that make us popular and all those things. We are not interested in going in a contrarian way, going against the grain with the things that don't make us as popular. Because unfortunately, we live in a world where we love more the applause than the criticism. We love more the people who clap hands for us. We don't ask ourselves, why do people clap hands for us? We always are looking for the praise. This is why when we are criticized, we always are thinking it's because people are jealous of us, because they want to be relevant on our names, because we are not used to someone thinking we are doing something wrong.
All right. Well, that is Zitobani Zigalala. Mr. Zigalala, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you very much, my sister.
So much,
I hope I didn't waste your time and that of your viewers.
I'm certain that my viewers will appreciate this.
If your viewers appreciate it, we're always open to coming here.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Sibonga kakhulu wena usho kanjalo Mr. Zigalala, Zitobani Zigalala, independent political analyst. Well, maybe it is time as South Africans and Africans to invest in building ourselves. By learning, by thinking, and by knowing who you are. Simple, knowing who you are. That could be something that could make and change this world. Not for us, of course, but for the next generation and the future generation. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that we'll be back again next week with more. If you like this content, contact us. Tell us, send us a shampoo signal or a comment to tell us that you like this. We'll bring this guy back and many others to converse about this. Till next time, goodbye.